Loren finishes the registration process at the guild and receives his copper rank adventurer card. He is surprised that this moment has finally arrived, but he knows there is no turning back. Loren starts remembering the past while at the guild's reception. He recalls that he was taken in by a group of mercenaries when he was still young and continued working with them until not long ago. Loren remembers that, despite the dangers, his mercenary group always managed to return from missions alive. They had several victories and defeats, but everyone believed that the victories would never end. However, one day, the group suffered an enormous defeat that no one expected. Some managed to survive, but Loren ended up separated from the group. Almost out of strength, he stumbled into a city and found himself in front of a building, the Adventurers Guild. He realizes that being an adventurer is somewhat similar to being a mercenary, always in search of the next job. Loren paid the registration fee and was quickly accepted into the guild, since they didn't even do background checks. He only had his leather armor, a two-handed sword, and a few silver coins. Before long, Loren became a wanderer. He looks at the guild's request board, filled with different kinds of missions, from hunting monsters to simple and strange tasks. To him, the guild seems more like a temporary job agency than a true adventurer's guild. Loren realizes that, as a copper rank adventurer and on top of that working solo, the mission options he can take are very limited. He looks at the board and sees that going alone on any mission might be too risky. Thinking about this, he even considers taking on simple tasks, like cleaning the sewers. While Loren is thinking about missions, a cheerful young man approaches, pats him, and asks if he is looking for work. The boy notices Loren looks like an experienced swordsman, but also sees he is alone, and suggests that most requests require more people to get done. The boy invites Loren to join their group, saying they only need someone to act as the vanguard. Loren thinks that if he were still with the mercenaries, he would refuse immediately. But now he needs to carefully analyze who is hiring and what the environment is like before accepting any mission. Since mercenaries are often seen only as temporary muscle and, many times, disposable. Loren realizes that working in a group is sometimes the only option, especially when he has no money. The boy reinforces that the rewards are better than working alone, and Loren begins to consider the proposal, since he is practically broke. The boy announces excitedly that they are adding a new member to the group. Now, they will start the next job with 5 people in the team. The group gathers around the table, and the boy suggests that everyone should introduce themselves since they will now be working together. The group begins introductions. Loren, the new member, will act as the vanguard. Naren, childhood friend of the blonde boy and a copper rank thief, also introduces himself. Then comes Oxy, a copper rank mage they met on the day they registered at the guild, and who has been with them since then. As the introductions continue, the group comments that Oxy can use magic 3 times a day, which catches Loren's attention. Right after, a girl politely asks to introduce herself as well, saying this is a special occasion. She addresses Loren, greeting him with a smile. The girl introduces herself as Lapis. She says she is a priestess who serves the god of knowledge, but has only just been ordained and still considers herself a novice. Lapis says she is excited to work with Loren. The group comments that, even though she is new and can only use magic twice a day, she has been very helpful. Loren, a little lost, wonders if that limit is low or not, since he doesn't know much about magic. The last one to introduce himself is Sarf, the leader of the group. He speaks enthusiastically about his dream of becoming a great hero and asks everyone to remember his name. The group jokes around, saying Sarf is the strongest in the world, while he insists that modesty is part of being a hero. Loren observes that the group seems balanced, but notices that, aside from him as the vanguard, the rest of the team is entirely made up of women. He remembers that in the mercenary group there were almost no women, but it wasn't due to lack of ability. So, he thinks everything will work out, though he still remains a little thoughtful. After some time, Loren and the group are already meeting with another adventurer, but the man won't stop talking. Loren loses patience and asks him to just explain what job they are going to do. While Loren tries to focus on the job, the rest of the group gets caught up in conversations and jokes, mainly listening to Sarfez's stories. Loren realizes that the group has many women and thinks this balance could cause problems in the future. He concludes that sitting there just talking won't bring money, and he feels that he has gotten involved with a rather complicated group. Loren warns that he is completely out of money and reminds the group that they were called for a job, so he wants to hear about the mission right away. Naren agrees, and Sarf suggests that now that everyone knows each other, it's time to get straight to the main subject. The group begins to discuss whether it's right to accept an ex-mercenary into the team, since mercenaries often have a bad reputation for doing anything for money. Lauren realizes this is a common view among people. Oxy defends Lauren, saying that someone with battle experience could be a great advantage for the group, since very few rookies have that kind of background. Sarf asks for Lapis's opinion about Loren. She thinks for a moment and says she doesn't believe Loren is a bad person. Sarf complains, saying she only thinks that way because she is still inexperienced and doesn't know real mercenaries. Lapis admits that she grew up in the church and doesn't know much about mercenaries, but she believes she is good at judging people. Loren explains that he won't be staying long. He is just helping with this job, so he asks them to put up with him only for that time. The group finally gets to the point. The mission is to eliminate goblins that are threatening a village 3 days away. Sarf even invites Lauren to join the group officially if he wishes. Naren comments that perhaps the guild won't allow them, being low-ranked, to take a mission of that level, and suggests finding another mission if necessary. Oxy says the guild probably won't let them accept that kind of mission, preferring to assign dangerous tasks to more experienced groups. Sarf argues that if they keep thinking that way, they will never move past easy missions. He suggests that taking some of these jobs might help the group build a reputation and unlock bigger missions later. Lauren asks if they know how many goblins they'll be facing, but Sarf admits he has no idea. The group thinks that, regardless of the number, goblins are weak and shouldn't be a big problem. Lauren realizes that the mission came about because hunters from the village ended up fleeing after encountering goblins in the forest. With everything decided, Sarf arranges for everyone to prepare and meet at the east gate of the city the next day. Lauren counts the few coins he has and realizes he can only buy cheap food for 3 days and pay for lodging that night. He wanted to buy medicine for his wound, but he won't be able to. The next day, he is already waiting at the east gate but notices that none of the group has arrived yet. Loren thinks he got to the gate too early and ends up chatting with a guard. The guard notices that Loren looks tired and asks if he slept well. Loren answers more or less, saying he is waiting for other people. The guard comments that he is also always tired in the morning and that working in that state is tough. The guard, bored, strikes up more conversation with Loren and asks if this is his first time in Kaffa. Loren confirms, saying that a lot has happened until now. The guard speaks proudly about the city, saying the food is great, the people are nice, and that even though it's not the capital, Kaffa is an excellent place to live. The guard points Loren to a shop with good food in the city, showing his pride in Kaffa. Loren thinks about it, since he has never had a city to call home. He remembers that, as a mercenary, he lived from battle to battle, always traveling, and can't even imagine what it would be like to relax and rest properly in one place. The guard asks if the arriving group are Loren's friends. He replies that in fact he is just accompanying them for now. The guard, a little suspicious, suggests that Loren should quickly distance himself from the group, saying that although they look like good people, none of them are really trustworthy. Loren thinks this sounds more like jealousy than a real theory. The group arrives and asks if they made Loren wait long. He confirms that now everyone is present, so they can leave. Since the destination is 3 days away on foot, they decide to look for a cart to make the trip easier, leaving Loren worried because he already spent all he had on food and cannot pay for transportation. Loren worries because he has no money for the cart and considers running alone to the destination, so he won't be late. He believes that if he keeps the right pace, he might make it in time, but he is clearly tense about the situation. Suddenly, Lapis approaches and touches his shoulder. Lapis notices that Loren is worried about money and offers him some coins to help pay for the trip to the city. She says it's just a loan, since it might be useful to have Loren owing her a favor in the future. Lapis tells Loren to see the money as an investment, since he might help her later. Soon after, someone from the group announces they managed to find a cart for the trip. The group secures a cart to reach the city for only 5 copper coins. Loren thanks her and uses the money he borrowed from Lapis. With everything settled, she brightens up and calls everyone to depart. Loren realizes he has already begun the journey in debt, but he doesn't have much choice. He looks ahead, thinking the road ahead will not be easy at all. The group then sets off by cart along the road. The group thanks the man for the ride in the cart, excited that they won't have to walk so much. The gentleman comments that it wouldn't be smart to waste time and energy walking. He notices they are adventurers going to solve the village's goblin problem and says he doesn't mind taking them, since he sold all his goods, and now the cart is empty. Loren assures him they can leave the goblin problem to them, while the group thanks him for the ride. Loren thinks it wouldn't hurt if the guy charged a little less. After that, everyone relaxes in the cart along the way, enjoying a moment of rest. Lauren thought he would be able to discuss strategies only after arriving, but realizes that's not going to happen. They end up helping set up a tent at the campsite, and Lauren receives thanks for the effort. The group decides to call it a day and rest. The farmer says he's going to sleep, and the folks set up the tents. They agree that if they leave early, they'll arrive at the village around noon. Sarfe says he and Loren will stand watch while the rest will rest. But Loren is already complaining about being tired and sore. Sarf says they'll take turns keeping watch during the night. Lauren gets a bit worried because normally the right thing is to have two people keeping an eye out, but they'll end up with just one at a time. He remembers that in the army it's different, since they camp near the road where there are patrols. But here in the middle of nowhere, with only one on guard, it's uneasy. Sarf notices the doubt and asks if Loren has a problem with that. Naren tells everyone to shut up and follow what the leader ordered. Then, Sarf asks who will take first watch. Loren says he's tired and would rather leave the first watch to Sarf. He also asks if they can swap around midnight, and Sarf says that's fine. Lauren is sitting near the fire during the watch, letting out a tired sigh. Out of nowhere, he stops and pays attention, thinking he heard some noise. He looks around, trying to figure out whether it was his imagination or if there's really something strange happening near the camp. Lauren realizes the others have already gone to sleep, and he's left alone on guard by the fire. He thinks there's no point trying to swap the watch at midnight because the rest of the group didn't wait and already went to rest. He compares this situation to when he was among mercenaries, saying it was different always being surrounded by others. Now he feels the weight of being outdoors, away from the old routine, and finds it kind of strange not having that company anymore. Lauren remembers when he was with the other mercenaries around the fire, but now he is alone. He thinks that if any of them are still alive somewhere, maybe someday they could meet again, but he knows the chances of that happening are very small. Loren realizes that overthinking it won't help at all. He stands up determinedly, but ends up making noise as he grabs his sword. Lapis, who is nearby, asks if something happened. Loren ends up getting startled when Lapis comes close. She apologizes and says she didn't mean to scare him. Loren says he couldn't sleep, so he went to sit by the fire. Lapis gives a somewhat awkward laugh and comments that the neighboring campers are making noise, and that's why she can't sleep either. Lapis asks if she can keep him company until he gets tired or until the noise dies down. Loren hesitates a bit, and she asks if these situations happen often. He says that in the adventurer's life, this happens a lot, but he prefers not to complain too much, because in the end, he's just happy everyone is healthy. Even though it's hard to ask them to choose better times to rest, since their lives don't allow that kind of luxury. Lapis says she had a very strict upbringing with other priests. While Loren comments that he's surprised, they talk about how in most religions, the gods tell their followers to be fruitful and multiply, so those who follow that believe they are doing the right thing. Loren asks which god she is a priestess of, and Lapis explains she serves Kukulhu, the god of knowledge. She warns not to compare gods to ordinary people, because some priests can be very strict about that. Loren thanks her, saying mercenaries don't learn these things, and she replies that some priests really care about those details, so it's better to be careful. Lapis asks why Loren decided to become an adventurer since he was a mercenary. Loren explains that his former group no longer exists. He says that kind of thing happens, that they just got unlucky and split up, so now each one went their own way. Lapis apologizes, but Loren says it's fine, that it's part of the life of those who live like that. Loren says he wanted to make money, but the only thing he knows how to do is use his strength, so he became an adventurer. He even thought about looking for another mercenary group, but he didn't even have money to leave the city. Lapis comments that he really looks strong, since his two-handed sword is huge, almost the size of her waist. Loren shows that he can hold the huge sword with just one hand, which impresses Lapis. He explains that, despite being a two-handed sword, he found it kind of limiting to have to use both hands, so he trained a lot until he could use it with either hand. Lapis gets excited and asks if she can try holding the sword too, and Loren lets her. Lapis holds the sword and asks Loren how it looks, saying that her waist is smaller so it must make a difference. Loren looks and confirms, somewhat surprised, that her waist really is smaller. The scene focuses only on the detail of the sword at Lapis's waist, showing that comparison. Loren gets embarrassed because he realizes he was staring, but says that Lapis really is quite slim, it's just that his sword is bigger. Lapis replies a bit shyly, asking if he's not going to say anything else. He tries to play it off, saying that she is indeed slim but thinks, "But your butt isn't, right?" Then they realize it's almost dawn. Loren comments that he didn't even notice time passing because they were talking so much. He apologizes, thinking he ended up telling boring mercenary stories, but Lapis says she found it all interesting and that she didn't mind staying up all night listening. The group wakes up early, a bit confused by the watch shift swap. They start getting ready to continue the journey. Lauren leaves the tent and confirms it's almost time to go. The farmer tells everyone to eat quickly, since they're close to the village. Loren notices he wasn't woken up for his watch shift, but Sarfe just says not to worry about it and to move on. The farmer announces they have arrived at the town of Ain. Lauren thinks that as soon as this job is over, he will look for another way to make money. They look at the dense forest from where the goblins are probably coming out. The group arrives in the town excited. Sarf wants to go straight into the forest, but Loren stops him and says the right thing is to talk to the client and get information from the village chief before going out to look for goblins. The group starts arguing. Lauren insists it's important to gather information about the goblins before acting, so they can set up a strategy. Sarf, on the other hand, thinks they're dragging things out for something simple, and says it would be faster if they just asked the driver to inform the village chief that they've arrived. Loren recalls that learning to gather information before acting was a basic procedure back when he was with the mercenaries, and warns them not to underestimate a mission just because it looks easy. The mood in the group gets tense, but the village chief shows up and says he hopes they solve the goblin problem soon, already thinking of the village at peace. Sarfe jokes for no one to fight and suggests he can talk to the town chief. Then Sarfe organizes the group in formation. Neon will go right behind him. Oxy and Lapis stay in the middle, and Lauren is responsible for the rear guard. The group prepares to enter the forest. Sarf says to finish quickly to put the residents at ease. Lapis offers healing in case anyone gets hurt, while the other girl reinforces that Loren will be their shield in the fight. There's no way to leave him out. One of them even suggests the mercenary should stay behind, but she immediately cuts in saying he will help by protecting everyone. Lapis says it would be a waste to heal now, better to save the magic in case Sarf gets hurt. The group enters the forest with no information about the goblins. They end up wandering aimlessly, just looking for any clue among the trees, already knowing the plan didn't seem like much. The group finds raspberries in the forest and rushes to pick them, shifting the focus of the mission. Meanwhile, the others start gathering herbs and bamboo. Lapis tries to remind everyone that the objective was the goblins, but no one cares much. Lauren keeps wondering how they're supposed to find goblins like this, since the group is distracted and has no plan. Loren is calm, saying that eventually the goblins will notice them in the forest anyway. Lapis asks if he gave up, and he answers that he's not very excited, but he'll deal with the goblins if they show up. She comments that she doesn't like being called more pliable. Loren just watches, with not much to say. Lauren gets a bit awkward and calls her Lapis-san, but she says just Lapis is fine. He thinks that he's never been close to any priestess before. Lauren suggests she can also call him just Lauren, but Lapis insists that, in her case, it has to be Lauren-san. She gets all flustered and says that's more feminine, and that she's not trying to keep her distance from him. Lauren says she can call him whatever is easiest. Lapis, all cheerful, answers with a smile. Yes, Lauren-san. Loren watches closely, noticing some shining eyes among the bushes, already expecting a confrontation to happen. The text warns that next time the group's strength will be tested. Loren immediately takes a combat stance with his sword in hand, while Lapis watches worriedly. The group hears a strange noise, and Sarf comments that he can hear some kind of voice. The other guy asks if they are goblins, but Sarfe still isn't sure. Oxy is hit by arrows and falls to the ground, groaning in pain. The group is shocked, and right after that, two goblins appear attacking, catching everyone by surprise. Loren gets irritated and yells, asking why they're looking away from the enemy. Lapis asks about using defensive magic, but Loren ignores it and says he doesn't need it. He dashes at the goblins, cuts down the enemies with ease, and quickly looks for the goblin's bow among the trees. Loren thinks he can't get any closer to the goblin and wishes he had a dagger or a short sword. He then throws his huge sword as if it were a discus, but even so, he feels it wasn't enough to fully defeat the enemy. The group sees the goblins trying to flee after the fight. The blonde one gets irritated and wants to chase them, but Loren asks whether it wouldn't be better not to overdo it and to take it easy. Even so, the blonde one insists that the mission was to finish off all the goblins, so they decide to pursue the enemies. The group starts arguing about going after the goblins. The blonde one says they can't claim they finished them all by just destroying one nest. The girl gets angry and tells the mercenary to just obey the leader's order and go after the goblins. Loren comments that they really didn't destroy all the nests. Loren and Lapis stay together while the rest of the group goes on ahead. Lapis says she thinks it's better to stay there, near Loren, since mages and priests usually like to have someone strong protecting them. She says she wants Loren as her protector from now on, and he is surprised by that. Loren and Lapis follow the goblin's blood trail, finding it easy to track them. Loren asks Lapis, directly, how strong she thinks their group is compared to others. He also says he wants to know how that guy, probably the goblin leader, thinks. They start talking about goblins, saying they have little intelligence but reproduce very quickly, and even an ordinary person could defeat a goblin alone. Loren says the only strong point of goblins is their numbers, and that to deal with that, you need strategy. Lapis comments that, from what she has seen so far, the goblin leader doesn't seem like much, since his reactions in the fight weren't impressive. Loren asks Lapis, since she was a mercenary, what she thinks of this situation and of the goblin chief, wanting to know whether he is smart or not. Loren warns that there are rumors of a very skilled mercenary called Blade Demon. She explains that he is a legendary swordsman and that no one wants to face him, because even as an enemy he guarantees the opponent's victory but would end up taking the credit. Loren recognizes the name and gets worried, while Lapis laughs, knowing you can't compare sword skills with him. Loren explains that, even with millions of mercenaries, no one could defeat the Blade Demon because of his skill with the sword. Loren comments that he is taking a risk, and that the situation is complicated because he's out of money, while Lapis casually remarks on the difficulty of his position. The group reaches the entrance of a cave, which appears to be the goblin's hideout. Loren points out the blood trail leading to the entrance and comments that it is too narrow for two people to enter side by side. Loren hesitates, worried about the space to use his sword, but they get ready to investigate the place. The group prepares to enter the cave. Loren offers an old sword that could be useful in combat, and Naren steps ahead to create light with magic. With everyone ready, they move in to investigate the goblin's hideout. The group prepares to advance with caution in the forest. Naren creates a light with magic, while Loren-san, and the others assess the area for signs of ambush or traps. Despite the tension, they decide to move forward to try to rescue the possible hostages. The group advances through the cave entrance, noticing that the goblins seem disorganized and confused. They proceed in silence, assessing the situation and realizing that there are no sentries posted by the enemies, which makes the approach easier. As they move through the cave, the group discusses the goblins' intelligence, comparing them to monkeys and thinking about their ability to organize themselves and set up watches. They consider that, although they don't know much about them, goblins may not be as much less intelligent as they seem. The group moves through the cave, and one of them notices a light ahead, indicating the presence of a room further on. They get ready to investigate the place. The group realizes that the goblins can see their lights and are probably planning an ambush. They prepare to attack from the front, with the leader promising to protect the group from arrows and another preparing protection magic. The group reaches the cave entrance and discusses strategy. Loren plans to burn green wood at the entrance to block the passage and use the heat and smoke to their advantage. Despite the difficulties and the cost of the oil, he believes it is the most practical way to deal with the situation. Loren explains that he has no money to buy supplies but decides to go ahead. He positions himself in front with the protagonist, using his huge sword as an improvised shield, since he wouldn't be able to use his own sword in that space. The group enters the cave, but must save magic. Loren goes ahead with the protagonist, while the other moves up front making noise, which makes Loren worried about how audible they are. The group advances through the cave while they are attacked by enemy arrows. Loren notes that, despite the rain of projectiles, no one is hit, while magic helps to protect the group. The group moves forward to face the goblins. Loren leads the charge, attacking directly, while the others watch the action closely and prepare to react. Loren slips as he approaches the goblins' cave, becoming momentarily vulnerable at the entrance, while the rest of the group watches the situation. Sarfray runs to help Loren, who is down at the cave entrance, while the others quickly move in behind her. Loren and Lapis realize that the ground is full of traps, while Sarf, Fallen, and other group members recover, and they warn everyone to be careful. As they recover from the attack, Loren and Lapis notice that on the other side of the cave, the enemies are surrounded by goblins. Amid the confusion, the team sees that the clash is spinning out of control. Even though they are just goblins, the situation has become chaotic and hard to manage. While the team faces the common goblins, they realize there is a different goblin, bigger and more experienced, who wields dark magic. This special goblin represents a much greater danger than the others and requires extra caution. They realize they are being surrounded, and that retreat won't be easy since goblins attack from all sides. The situation quickly becomes complicated, requiring the group to organize to defend themselves. The mage begins to cast a sleep spell, trying to incapacitate the goblins to protect the group. She concentrates her energy and prepares the spell to affect all the enemies ahead. The mage fires her magic, creating an intense wave of light that spreads over the goblins. Lauren and the group notice the sudden light, preparing for the effect of the spell. As the magic spreads, something unexpected happens. Lauren feels a sudden disturbance and warns the group, looking surprised toward the direction of the imminent danger. Even with the sleep magic, the goblins do not fall. The group finds itself surrounded, and Lauren, together with the others, tries to hold back the enemy's approach, protecting the more vulnerable members. The group is taken by surprise when a goblin manages to strike Lapis, knocking her down. The situation proves more dangerous, requiring Lauren and the others to react quickly to protect their companion. Lauren realizes the gravity of the situation, feeling that it shouldn't be possible for them to be in such danger. Meanwhile, Lapis and the others scream in desperation, being attacked by the goblins, heightening the tension of the moment. Lauren realizes that the escape route is blocked, making it clear that the goblins can no longer be avoided. He understands they are in serious danger, and quickly asks the others whether they still have strength to fight back. Lauren realizes they are surrounded by goblins coming from behind as well, and understands they will be completely cornered. He thinks about what to do but ends up saying it's useless, and asks to be left behind. Lauren understands he is putting everyone at risk, and tries to convince himself that, being a man, he would be the main target. He says he is a burden, and that it's fine to leave him behind, hoping the others can escape. She smiles at Lauren, showing confidence and support, even when he insists that he should be left behind. He hesitates, but feels her determination. Lauren cuts off any argument, telling her to be silent, while he states that he has decided that his side is the safest place. She confirms that she will stay with him, showing determination. She suggests that if she makes Lauren owe her, she can count on his help in the future. Lauren warns her to hold on, and they advance cautiously through the unstable tunnel. They move forward together through the unstable tunnel, determined to press on with no other option. They advance through the tunnel but are immediately attacked by goblins who fire arrows in surprise. They advance, dodging the arrows and striking the goblins that appear ahead. They have nowhere to retreat, so they decide to push straight ahead, aiming at the goblin mage in front. They advance, but the goblin mage fires a fire projectile. One of them blocks quickly, noticing that the other goblins are reacting. They press straight toward the goblin mage, with one of them shouting that he won't be able to escape. He picks Lauren up in his arms and rushes down the corridor, trying to escape the goblin's attack. He holds Lauren tight as they move through the tunnel, ignoring his request to be left behind, aware that they still need to keep their distance from the goblins. They move deeper into the cave, aware this was the only option, but worried about the lack of an exit and the uncertain future, while the cost of the mission weighs on one of their minds. As they advance, they talk about the difficulty of the situation. One complains about being dragged, another tries to keep focus, and the third suggests trying something different. They finally manage to see better thanks to the magic, and the man realizes he won't need to be carried like a sack of potatoes anymore. She asks not to be treated like extra baggage, and he carries her on his back, leaving both more comfortable to continue. She thanks him sincerely for having saved her, and he, surprised by her formality, asks why she wanted him to save her. He explains that he is an indecisive guy, and that she got lucky, even having left the others behind, since he still owed her a few coins. She tries to see this as an act of kindness, and he admits that both interpretations are true. She comments that, even though he spoke in a different way before, she interprets it as an act of kindness and can't help but think that way. Then, she asks if the different way of speaking was something regional. She asks if there is a reason why he suddenly stopped moving, saying she won't force it, but that it would be easier to deal with the situation if he told her. He hesitates, but admits he should talk, since she has already seen a lot. She asks if Lauren knows a race called Demon Kin, revealing the origin of her condition. She explains that the Demon Kin are a non-human race, with great physical and magical ability, but they have little interest in relating to other races and usually use any means for their own benefit, which gives them a negative reputation. The text explains that although the Demon Kin are different and often feared, they should not be dismissed just for being demons. Some can even be called demon lords, but that doesn't mean they seek to rule the world. In appearance, they are almost indistinguishable from humans, except for the violet eyes, and each individual is unique, just as among humans. The character reveals that, in fact, she herself is a demon, surprising the protagonist. The character explains that, although they do not worship gods like the Supreme God or Mother Earth, they share ideals similar to the God of knowledge. Because of that, the priests of this god can use both divine arts and magic, since magic is considered a form of knowledge. The explanation continues. Because of the nature of the god of knowledge, she can use both divine arts and magic, something that would be impossible with other gods. This means that a human who believes in this god could also use magic. She states that being a demon, her abilities surpass those of any ordinary human, and no one is better than her at using this magic. They keep talking as they move through the cave. Loren explains that most demon kin live isolated in the mountains at the center of the continent, which makes contact with other races difficult. That's why she decided to become an adventurer, leaving the hard-to-reach area to interact with the outside world. Loren explains that the demon kin, because they resemble humans, can blend in and go out into the outside world without being noticed, as long as they avoid human areas and don't use powers that draw attention. She reveals that some restrictions or limitations were placed on her, which keep her in her current situation. Loren explains that the body she is using is not real. Her arms, legs, and eyes are artificial forms, created with magic, capable of processing information and allowing her to move and interact even in her current condition. Loren explains that the body she is using can only move using her own mana, and that consumes a lot of her energy. She mentions that Oxy's magic being blocked was probably caused by an area spell called Mana Lost, cast by a goblin, which prevents any magic from being used within a certain range of the caster. Loren confirms that the magic item they found is probably responsible for blocking magic, but it's not something that can be used repeatedly. She still needs time to fully regain control of the body, using her own mana. Loren explains that her current way of speaking is natural for her. Because of the effect of the mana lost magic, which left her unable to move, she ended up shifting from one mindset to another, like a change in expression or battle mode. Takabayashi understands it's a strange way to explain, but he gets the situation. Takabayashi thinks that it wouldn't have been wrong for Loren to decide that the best thing was to leave her behind, but he feels very grateful for the fact that she was taken along with him. Loren explains to Takabayashi that even if they are not well regarded by many, the demon kin never forget debts they owe, reinforcing the idea of honor and gratitude within their race. Takabayashi replies that he can pay Loren in any way she wants, but she suggests leaving that conversation for after they get out of the cave. As they move on, he comments that the cave is strange, noting that they have been heading in this direction since the goblin attack. Takabayashi notices that, although they have moved a lot, there is still no exit in sight. Loren comments that the passage seems strange, not natural, too long to be just a cave formed by nature, almost looking man-made. They follow corridors used by the goblins, unable to find a detour or exit. Takabayashi suggests whether they should go back, but Loren questions whether that wouldn't make them end up in the same room they escaped from. They continue, recognizing that a possible detour on the other side would be great, but Takabayashi comments that relying on luck isn't reliable, and Loren admits he isn't very lucky either. Loren reveals that upon leaving the land of the demon kin, her parents imposed a restriction that removed her limbs and eyes. Takabayashi is surprised by this. Loren comments that even after becoming an adventurer, she ended up in a group with troublesome people, making her situation even worse. Another member of the group jokes that this made it easier for her to join the party, since their attention was on other things. Loren explains that her parents hid her eyes and limbs in human territory, and that she needs to gain experience in the world before retrieving them. She doesn't want to compete with Takabayashi's bad luck. He comments that after finding everything, she will need to go back home and discuss with her parents how to recover the body. Takabayashi notices a light ahead and wonders whether it could be an end of the passage or if there are still goblins hiding. He asks Loren to activate her light magic to illuminate the path. Takabayashi asks whether Loren can stand on her own, but she still can't. He says it would be better if they could escape without him needing to draw the sword, and she comments that she might end up making the trip harder if he needs to use it. They keep moving through the illuminated cave. They reach a dead end in the cave, but there is a crack through which a bit of light comes in. Loren realizes that, with difficulty, she can squeeze through the space, but it's tight. Loren explains that she still can't move well, and fears squeezing through the crack alone. The man suggests widening the opening, and she offers to handle that, asking him to stay alert while she works, warning that she will make noise. He agrees, knowing they must act quickly before someone catches up. The man starts breaking the rock with force, focusing on opening a passage. He believes the effort will work, while Loren watches, ready to cross when the opening is large enough. He finally finishes opening the passage, which is now wide enough for Loren to get through. She praises the effort, commenting that it took a while, and notes that it seems they still haven't been caught by their pursuers, so they should be safe for now. He gets ready to go through the hole, carrying Loren, comparing the situation to boarding a boat. As he crawls through the narrow space, he shows fatigue and wonders where exactly this passage will take them. They finally reach the other side of the passage. He extends his hand to Loren, helping her out of the hole. She slips slightly, but he holds her firmly. She thanks Loren for helping her, and mentions that she wants to hear her opinion about something important. He shows Loren a passage or structure, and asks what she thinks it is. Loren and the other character observe the structure and are impressed. He explains that it is the Ancient Kingdom, a powerful civilization of the past, with advanced magic and various races, demons, humans, demi-humans, and beastkin. The ruins today belong to powerful mages, and at the height of the kingdom, the cities floated in the sky. He also comments that the kingdom suddenly fell, scattering the races across the world, and that finding these ruins can be very valuable. Loren and the other character look at the wall of the ruins and discuss taking a sample for research, considering the dim light as a help. Loren comments that if they really are ruins of the ancient kingdom, there may be traps or guardians, so the situation is delicate despite the historical value of the place. Loren and the other character discuss the ruins of the ancient kingdom. Loren comments that even among famous ruins, some can be quite ordinary and uninteresting. She gives the example of a ruin that was just a bathroom, fully equipped and functional but without traps or guardians, showing that not everything ancient is dangerous or valuable. Loren explains that not all ruins are dangerous. In fact, there are more safe ruins than dangerous ones. She suggests that first they need to identify the type of ruin they are in. She also offers to detect magical traps, while asking the other character to stay alert for enemies, reinforcing the idea of teamwork. They talk about the possibility of having to go back and face the goblin nest if the situation gets worse. But Loren stays practical and says that for now, it's fine, as long as they can get out without running into trouble. Suddenly, she is startled by something unexpected, making the other character react quickly to protect her. They realize that something is approaching. Loren gets ready to use magic to paralyze the enemies, and the other character stays alert, ready to act at the right moment. They advance cautiously down the corridor, Loren resting on the other's back, who keeps a firm and vigilant posture. A narration observes the scene. A young woman is on the back of a guy who appears intimidating. Loren and the other observe something ahead. They are surprised by the unexpected presence of humans in the middle of an unexplored area of the ruins. One of the characters comments that at least they are warm, but warns that lost children make the place dangerous to get lost in. They find a group of silver rank adventurers, identified by their dog tags, who seem serious and experienced. The silver adventurer group comments on the luck of Loren and Oxy, questioning whether it was really bad luck that they survived the goblin attack and ended up lost in the ruins. One of them notes that, considering the entire other team was killed, they can't be considered unlucky. The group is formally introduced, showing the names and classes of each member. All silver rank: Nim, Archer, Chuck, Thief, Colts, Mage, and Ritz, Swordsman. There is also a comic interaction at the beginning of the page, where Chuck pulls Nim's ear and Oxy complains, emphasizing the group's dynamic. The group continues their interaction, now focusing on the elf in the group. Loren's son is surprised by the elf's beauty, and Oxy comments about seeing an elf for the first time. Colts asks Loren not to stare directly into her eyes, and there is slight comic tension, with Ritz complaining about the situation. The group still maintains a respectful tone, showing Loren's curiosity and admiration, and Oxy's diplomacy. The group realizes that the ruin they are in is newly discovered, explaining the interest of other adventurers in the area. The elf and the man accompanying them mention that if they were less busy, they could have escorted Loren and Oxy to the exit, but the priority is the job they are doing. They comment that exploring newly discovered ruins is risky, but also profitable, and that it is common to find other explorers in the same place. The group explains that they are racing against other adventurers to see who can get the best finds in the ruins, since the reward depends on that. They ask Loren and Oxy to just indicate the direction of the exit without getting in the way of their work, as they have no intention of interfering. Loren realizes that the other adventurers seem to be looking for something, but the group's leader admits that he himself doesn't know exactly where it is. He clarifies that it's not because they are unprepared or lost, they just haven't found what they are looking for yet. While Oxy watches the situation with curiosity, Lauren and Oxy notice that something strange happened to the other adventurers. Their eyes didn't seem normal for someone being carried on the back. The leader explains that they fell into a trap because Chuck failed to detect the danger, and now they don't know the way out. The group realizes they were lucky not to fall into poison or spike traps when they fell several floors. Chuck fell on top of someone, but that wasn't much different from hitting the ground. The elf in the group, now serious, asks them to speak their last words if they have anything to say. The elf threatens to execute Chuck, who defends himself by saying he only told the truth. Meanwhile, Lauren explains that she cannot point out the exit of the cave. The group of adventurers explains that they also suffered injuries but managed to recover using the potions they brought, and now they want to ask Lauren a few questions. Lauren explains that she can use her healing magic one more time, which is more efficient than the potions the group spent. She asks for a little more time so she can use the magic once more, and Kai understands that they probably want to use Lauren instead of the potions. Lauren explains that even if the others abandon them, it wouldn't be so bad, because Kai can protect himself. She says that if he carries her, it won't reduce the combat strength of anyone in the opposing group, since she can't move on her own. Kai comments that she seems dangerous, but didn't expect to hear those words from her. Kai and Lauren end up agreeing to work together with the group of silver-ranked adventurers until they can get out of the ruins. The group makes it clear that they want to take advantage of Lauren's last spell to deal with the situation. Kai and Lauren seal the deal with the group of silver adventurers, agreeing to work together until they can leave the ruins. Everyone seems confident and determined to move forward safely. Kai sighs, hopeful that they can leave the ruins without further problems, but deep down he feels that probably won't happen. The group moves on, cautious, exploring the place. Kai assures that the burn on his shoulder is fine, since they received treatment, but Lauren asks him to let her know if he feels pain. She offers to use one of her spells to help him, showing care and concern. Kai realizes that Lauren lied when she said she had only one spell left, but understands it was an extreme precaution. He reflects on how their fate is now tied to this group of silver-rank adventurers, and that they will have to deal with these lies until they can get out of the ruins. Kai comments on how the ruins are strange. He expected that because they are unexplored ruins of the ancient kingdom, non-living creatures like golems or undead would appear, but so far they haven't found anything like that. Kai comments that they have only found goblins so far, but he doesn't know if that's good or bad. Chuck explains that, before the ruins were discovered, the entrance was sealed until a few days ago. The mage, hired to open the place, probably attracted some guardians, so there may still be enemies wandering around there, possibly entering through the holes and cracks that the protagonists used to get in. Chuck explains that, so far, besides the goblins, nothing else has appeared. The original guardians may have died or been defeated by the goblins, but that makes the ruins unusual considering their original function. If they were astral monsters like undead, the situation would be different. Kai realizes this makes the place more complicated than it seemed. Chuck interrupts the group, reminding them that the most important thing now isn't the ruins' function, but finding the exit. He spots goblins ahead and warns everyone about the danger. Loren takes the lead to investigate. While Loren and Lapis keep an eye on the surroundings, Lapis is set down on the ground to rest, but remains alert. The group realizes there are few targets and gets ready. One member asks if Lapis should use protection magic, but they decide it's not necessary, trusting that the battle will be quick. The fight begins, and the group faces the goblins. Each acts efficiently, attacking quickly and taking down the enemies with coordination. The group keeps advancing through the goblins, crushing the enemies on the ground while maintaining formation. Their efficiency allows them to eliminate the opponents quickly. The group finishes eliminating the goblins ahead of them. Chuck, relieved, raises his blades and takes a deep breath, showing satisfaction at the efficient combat. The group observes the dead goblins scattered on the ground, silence taking over the space as they absorb the gravity of the situation. The group talks about the opponents they faced, acknowledging their skill, but emphasizing that, as silver-rank adventurers, that's nothing impressive. The protagonist reflects that, although they are all adventurers, their ways of acting and thinking are completely different. The protagonist and the girl joke about the situation, lightly accepting the generosity of the group they just faced. He then takes the items they received and puts them with his backpack, showing they are ready to continue the journey. The protagonist realizes that the number of goblins is becoming unbearable, and that their blood is leaking through the sack they carry, making the smell unbearable. He comments mentally that it's too much, while the goblins keep appearing non-stop. The protagonist is carrying Lapis on his back, and while they breathe heavily, He notices the strong smell of blood and gets bothered. He tries to justify himself mentally, saying he's not excited. It's just that his sense of smell isn't working right because of the smell. The team suddenly stops upon noticing something strange in the air. The elf comments that he smells blood, but that it doesn't come from the goblins. They realize there is something different in the environment, a sign that another danger may be approaching. The team realizes they can't identify the source of the blood smell that Nim detected. They discuss that both goblin and human blood smell like iron, but Nim has sharper senses, so he can perceive something the others can't. They decide the origin may be further ahead. The group realizes they need to be on maximum alert from this point. Meanwhile, Chuck tries to ease the tension with a joke, but the others remind him there's no time for kidding. They ask if Lapis can already move. Lapis warns that it will take a little longer for her to recover, and the group decides that the decision about her fate will be hers. Meanwhile, Chuck draws everyone's attention to something ahead. The group observes the area ahead and notices the destruction. Bodies and remains scattered, signaling that the place is in a terrible state. They look at the blood-covered leather armor on the ground and realize it's still fresh. One of the older ones comments that, besides the opposing group, there may be others who also fell in this place. They discuss who owned the armor and what might have happened to them, while teasing lightly about getting senile or careless. They conclude that, by the amount of blood, the owner of the armor is probably already dead. Furthermore, they deduce that, if the armor belonged to one of the competitors, the owner would be a woman, and therefore a thief. Laruka realizes that something doesn't fit. They have only found goblins in the ruins, and a woman would be involved, which to her doesn't make sense. They realize that if the armor belonged to a woman and she was killed by the goblins, something is not right. It doesn't make sense. They realize that the goblins' behavior is not normal, and begin to suspect that there is something more sinister hidden in the ruins. The scene ends, leaving that tension in the air. The girl is surprised to hear that there is something different there. She thought there were only goblins in these tunnels. In the background, a large shattered skull appears on the ground, indicating that there is a greater danger nearby. The group comments that goblins do not kill women immediately because they have other uses for them. The boy thinks that if the owner of that armor was a woman and died there, and if it was a goblin who did it, it would be quite out of the ordinary. The group concludes that if the woman had survived, the goblins would have taken her to their nest. Then they realize that what killed the owner of the armor was not a goblin. They decide there is another dangerous creature around. After that, they start talking about the way back, saying it was a straight corridor and it would be easy to return. One of the girls says she finds everything strange and suggests going back the way they came. The elf agrees, but another member of the group thinks it's an exaggeration to retreat just because of a blood-stained armor. He says they would need a more concrete reason to go back, and that running away now wouldn't look good for them. The group decides they would only go back if they found some item that identified the dead person, like a dog tag or necklace. They agree to stay on high alert, but retreat is not an option now. One of them says that if they found something that proved who the victim was, then yes, it would be different. The elf agrees with this plan. The group decides to move on, staying alert for any danger. The leader asks everyone to be ready for any situation. Soon after, the girl calls Lauren with a smile, trying to cheer him up before they continue the exploration. The girl stands up and says she is fine to continue. Loren asks if she is better and she thanks him for everything so far. The group confirms that the princess can walk again, and she comments that resting more would only hinder their progress. One of the members teases, asking if Lauren and the girl have something more. Lauren gets embarrassed, but the girl answers laughing that, not at the moment. The group jumps into the banter, joking with Lauren and saying he got himself a pretty girl, while another makes a fuss asking for food. One of the members, lying down and tired, complains, saying that if anyone wants to draw the monster's attention, don't involve the group. He also comments that he'd be more likely to die to them than to any monster. Lauren asks the princess to follow his example, and in the end she agrees to do her best. The leader decides to put her in the rear guard, asking if now she will help in combat. The girl looks around excitedly and tells Loren she is impressed, because they are in ruins of an ancient kingdom, something rare even for more experienced adventurers. She comments that everything there is new to her, both the good and the bad. Loren, a bit impatient, reminds her that the situation is still dangerous, and asks if she understands where they've gotten themselves into. The girl pretends to be scared and clings to Lauren, saying she's afraid. Lauren looks at her, half unbelieving, and says that even he can tell she's just pretending. Loren asks the girl to let go of him since she was clinging too much. She acts coy, but ends up letting go. The group notices that the two are so distracted that they're not even paying attention to the others. The elf then asks what her main objective is in this expedition. The elf woman explains that the group's objective is to continue investigating the ruins, but they also need to find out what happened to the rival team. They still haven't decided which of these missions is the priority. The princess suggests that maybe it would be better to go back to the place where she fell into the trap. They talk about the trap, coming to the conclusion that it wasn't made to kill, but only to capture intruders. The girl thinks the entire floor was created to deal with anyone who fell there. The group suggests that perhaps domesticated monsters were released to finish off these intruders. The princess comments that everyone deals with unwanted guests in their own way, and might even use the intruders as test subjects, depending on the situation. The group finds it unlikely to find anything valuable on that floor, and therefore decides it's not worth staying there. The princess believes there must be some panel or exit for anyone who fell into the trap. Even without finding anything like that, where they fell, Loren agrees that her idea makes sense, and everyone decides to follow that suggestion, looking for a nearby exit. The group agrees to go back to the place where they fell, to investigate better. One of them insists he didn't see any exit mechanism, but the other argues that if an exit exists, it must be well hidden, since the trap wasn't made to kill immediately. They decide to trust the map made by their companion, and set out together to look for what might be hidden there. The group follows the path indicated on the map, turns down the right corridor, and finally reaches the place where they had fallen before. Loren confirms to everyone, "We've arrived." The group notes that the ceiling is quite high and notices a door up above, probably the trap door through which they fell. They wonder if there really is a passage that leads upward, since nothing else there draws attention. The group's thief remembers that he's a specialist, and says that if there were any secret path around there, he would have already found it. He emphasizes that he didn't find any hidden passage in that area. While the group watches, the thief ends up finding and opening a hidden hatch in the floor. He looks inside, surprised at what he finds there. The girl approaches the group smiling and seems to be holding some kind of item or lever. Loren, curious, asks her what she did. The girl finds a hidden control panel in the wall, hard to see because of the magical material. She activates the mechanism, surprising the group. One of them jokes that it was the thief's job to find these things, leaving him embarrassed. Loren admits he still didn't quite understand what happened. Right after, a mechanism is activated, and a staircase appears, extending up high, showing the way for them to climb. The group sees that a staircase has appeared, finding it all almost too easy. They decide to go up to find out where the staircase leads, moving on with curiosity. The group starts climbing the staircase, helping one another. The girl comments that after they find what they need and return to the upper floor, they probably won't be able to travel together again. Loren notices how quickly everyone acts and thinks that maybe their luck has finally changed. The first to go up the staircase checks the place and says it's safe, calling the others to climb one at a time. The girl says she can go whenever they want, all excited to explore. Loren observes her enthusiasm but already seems to expect something will ruin the cheerful mood. The girl realizes that upon returning to the upper floor, the group might ask them to go straight back to the city. Loren questions whether they will still need them as guides after that. She is surprised, as she hadn't even thought of that possibility, and Loren says he's surprised she didn't think of it earlier. Loren says this floor has no exploration value, and he just wants to get out of there quickly. He thinks these ruins are only danger for him. The girl realizes that, to stay together, they will have to be useful somehow beyond her healing powers, which seems difficult. She gets a little discouraged with the situation. As they climb, Loren asks if she doesn't have other knowledge or skills. The girl says that if she said she can use magic, it would only generate distrust. She explains that if she knew the type of ruin better, she could understand the map of the place. Loren is impressed and asks how she would do that. She answers that, just like in adventurers' guilds, the basic structure of buildings is usually the same, to make it easier for those who work there to adapt. The girl explains that ruins also follow a pattern, like the guilds. Even in ancient times, constructions were made with practicality and efficiency in mind, so most old buildings follow a similar model. The thief asks if there are exceptions, and she says yes. There are always some constructions outside the pattern in any era. As they climb the staircase, the girl comments that sometimes there are ruins quite different from the others. The thief finally reaches the top, but suddenly starts running, frightened, as if he had seen something unexpected. As soon as the thief reaches the top of the staircase, he sees something strange and realizes they are in danger. He quickly shouts for everyone to get off the staircase, jumping back down before something bad happens. As soon as the thief warns the group, several goblins appear by surprise, attacking via the staircase. The group realizes they've fallen into a goblin ambush and prepares to fight. The goblins start leaping en masse through the opening, coming down hard toward the group. The scene shows the full ambush, with several armed goblins rushing them at once. Loren and the girl are startled when they see the number of goblins coming after them. They start running down the corridor with the rest of the group, trying to flee the horde right behind them. The group runs desperately through the corridors while questioning where so many goblins came from and how they ended up in this situation again. They realize that if they take any wrong turn and end up in a dead end, they'll be crushed by the horde. Loren only thinks he doesn't want to be trampled by goblins and tells everyone to shut up and keep running. The group keeps running while thinking that if they get cornered, they'll die right there. The two most exhausted members start realizing the situation is getting worse, and they can't keep up the pace of the escape. Lapis and Colts are exhausted and with almost no strength to keep fleeing. The thief panics and shouts that they can't stop now, trying to spur the two on to keep running. Loren realizes that Lapis is running out of energy, worrying that she won't have enough time to recover mana if she needs to run more. He tries to warn her, because he knows that if she stops, it will be the end. The mood is tense as she continues, exhausted. Lapis thinks about giving up and asks to be left behind, clearly worn out. Loren notices the situation and feels bothered, but remains determined, even with the heavy mood between them. Loren picks up Lapis and keeps running without hesitation, showing he's used to carrying exhausted allies, since he did that all the time back when he was a mercenary. Even tired, he says he can handle the situation. Loren is tired, but tells Lapis and the old man not to worry about being a burden. He says he'll handle the physical effort, while asking them to focus on thinking of a way out of that situation. Loren realizes that at the pace they're going, they'll end up exhausted and the enemies will catch up. The group realizes they will soon be overtaken by the goblins. The princess suggests that Colts use an earth barrier to stop the enemies, but he explains that even if he could make the wall, they would only gain a few seconds. Using area magic like a fireball also wouldn't help much, because there are too many goblins. It would be like dropping a single water droplet into the ocean. The group considers using an area fire spell, but the princess explains she could only cast that magic twice, and it probably wouldn't make much difference against so many goblins. The conclusion is that it's not worth spending that resource now. The group keeps running, and the mood gets tense. Loren orders them to cut the chatter and focus on finding an exit fast. Meanwhile, one of the characters is impressed by the princess's magical knowledge, but everyone is only concerned with escaping. Loren asks if they found an exit, but the answer is no. The princess panics, covers her face, and says they don't have enough strength to defeat so many goblins. The whole group is discouraged, not knowing what to do. The group realizes the situation has become critical, as they are about to be overtaken by the goblins. They panic, thinking that maybe only the women in the group would be spared as food or worse. Everyone starts to despair, feeling there isn't much they can do to escape. Colt says that, if needed, he will carry the elf on his back. He tries to cheer things up by saying it would be like giving his nephew a piggyback ride. The elf thanks him, somewhat surprised by the kindness, and says he's being a bit too docile in that situation. Loren is very tired and realizes the group is already at the limit, with no real strategy. He thinks there must be some emergency exit on the floor, but he has no idea where. They keep running without knowing when the goblins will catch up, and he realizes that if they don't find an exit, only total annihilation awaits at the end of this flight. Loren says he has an idea. Even if it isn't perfect, it's better than doing nothing. He asks if anyone remembers the way back to the main area, but no one is sure, only that Chuck should remember. Chuck nods, ready to guide the group. The group asks Chuck if he can guide everyone to the door the goblins came through. He explains that it's not possible to go back exactly the same way, but if they take a detour, they can get there. Loren adds that all the goblins who are coming through that door must have already come down to this floor, so it might be safer to try to go there now. They start discussing the idea of going back up the staircase the goblins descended, since it would be hard for all the goblins to climb quickly the same way. Loren says that in that scenario, at least they won't be crushed by the number of enemies. Chuck gets worried, thinking that if they are attacked while climbing the staircase, it could be the end. The group then considers using magic to hold the goblins. Firestorm to stop the first ones, and an earth wall to block whoever tries to come up last, trying to buy time until everyone can get up. The group decides that the best chance is to climb to the next floor, while someone holds the goblins with magic. The mage says to leave the spells to him, but the warrior says he will hold the rear, guaranteeing time for everyone to climb before the earth wall breaks. He also says that if things go bad, he has a plan to solve the problem. The warrior says he won't need to face them all at once. He'll only hold those who manage to get past the fire magic and the earth wall. He asks the group to go up as fast as possible to avoid the worst-case scenario, while the other guy is still a bit in shock but understands the idea. The group decides to act fast. They ask Chuck to guide everyone to the secret passage the goblins came from. Chuck confirms and immediately goes ahead, showing the way. The leader warns that when they arrive, Chuck goes up the staircase first, the rest of the group right after, and Colts already starts preparing to cast the spells. Everyone understands the plan and runs together. The group leader insists that, as the chief, he will be the last to go up, protecting the rear. But the protagonist disagrees and says that the one who should be last is him, not the leader. The mood gets tense, showing that neither wants to leave the other in danger. The protagonist says he already has experience protecting the rear and asks to leave that to him, reminding them he used to be a mercenary. He explains that, because of the leader's heavy armor, the goblins would catch up to him quickly if he tried to go up last. The archer agrees, saying that with cover she can climb the staircase quickly. In the end, the leader accepts the plan and says he will trust him. The group reaches the staircase and sees that there are no more monsters nearby. The leader celebrates and tells everyone to start climbing quickly. The group realizes the monsters are getting close. The leader shouts for the mage to cast the spell, while the old man begins to conjure a very powerful fire spell. The group sees the goblins approaching fast. The leader shouts for the old man to cast the spell quickly, and the mage begins to conjure a large fire spell. After casting the fire spell, the mage already prepares the next spell. He summons a large wall of earth to hold the goblins, while the group gets ready to climb. As soon as the earth wall is created, the group seizes the chance and starts climbing the staircase as fast as possible.